Jeremiah 33, verse 14. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel and to the house of Judah. One of the things we find about the Lord is that he has always been a God that likes to make promises and likes to make good on fulfilling his promises. I don't know if you are like me, but sometimes I find that my general posture from day to day can easily slip into one of cynicism. I don't want to believe that the promises made by God or anybody else are going to come to fruition. I often have been trained to think that I don't deserve good gifts, I don't deserve promises to be fulfilled. Sometimes that is the narrative that can run inside my head. The challenge, I think, for many of us is to be people that don't give up. We are supposed to be people of hope. We don't give up on the fact that when God makes promises, God is going to make good on his promises. One of the things he told his people through the prophet Jeremiah was, I will fulfill my promise. As you go about your day today, as you go about your week this week, watch yourself to see whether or not you too are like me, giving in to cynicism at moments when, in fact, you should lean in and lean towards the promises of God. Believe that God is who he says he is. Believe that God is going to do the things he says he is going to do and live accordingly, because it will change the way that you and I lean into our day and lean into our week. It will change the way we relate to other people. And it will change the way we experience the gospel each and every day. Today, we're diving into Jeremiah 33, a chapter overflowing with hope, healing, and restoration. Stick with me, because this message is for you. It's God's invitation to call unto him and witness great and mighty things. I've spent years studying the Bible to uncover the life-changing truths it holds. Jeremiah 33 is one of the most powerful chapters in Scripture for anyone who's desperate to see God work in their life. Whether you're seeking answers to tough questions, needing restoration in your family, or simply longing to feel God's presence, this message is going to transform your perspective. Let's unpack this incredible promise from God. I must first set the background condition of Israel during the time of Jeremiah 33. It was one of despair, devastation, and exile. The nation was in the midst of severe turmoil due to the Babylonian conquest under King Nebuchadnezzar. Here's a deeper dive into the historical and spiritual context. The Babylonian siege of Jerusalem. At the time, Jerusalem was under siege by the Babylonians, and the city's fate seemed sealed. The Babylonians had already attacked Judah multiple times, and by the time Jeremiah received this word from the Lord, Jerusalem was either in ruins or close to it. Many homes and palaces were destroyed, and the temple was under threat. The people of Judah were facing famine due to the siege, as food supplies were cut off. Violence and death, with many soldiers and civilians killed in battle. Exile, as many were taken captive to Babylon. Jeremiah himself was imprisoned in the court of the guard for prophesying the fall of Jerusalem. The people were losing hope as the city and their way of life crumbled before their eyes. Spiritual rebellion and God's judgment. Judah's condition wasn't only political, it was spiritual. For generations, the people had turned away from God. They worshipped idols, including Baal and Asherah, despite repeated warnings from prophets. They neglected God's covenant and disobeyed his laws. They committed social injustices such as exploiting the poor and shedding innocent blood. Because of their persistent rebellion, God had allowed the Babylonians to invade as an act of judgment. Jeremiah's prophecies often called out these sins and warned of the consequences, but his words were largely ignored. Despite the grim circumstances, Jeremiah 33 is a chapter of hope. While the people were experiencing the consequences of their sins, God spoke to Jeremiah about restoration and renewal, restoration of health and peace. God promised to heal and rebuild what was destroyed, forgiveness of sin. The captivity and devastation were the result of the people's iniquity, but God declared he would cleanse and forgive them. Unshakable covenant. God reassured his people that his promises to David and the priesthood would remain intact, ensuring a future for Israel. This promise wasn't just for the immediate restoration of Judah after exile. It also pointed to the coming of the Messianic King, Jesus Christ, who would establish a spiritual kingdom of justice and righteousness. Israel's condition during Jeremiah 33 was one of physical destruction, political instability, and spiritual despair. Yet God spoke a message of hope, showing that even in their darkest moments, he had plans for restoration, healing, and a brighter future. This reminds us that God's promises remain steadfast, even when we face the consequences of our failures. God's invitation, call unto me, verse 3. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3 says, call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things, which thou knowest not. This is more than a promise. It's a declaration of God's character. Think about it. God, the creator of the universe, is inviting you to call on him. He's not asking for perfection or fancy words. He just wants you to trust him enough to cry out in faith. Here's the truth. When we call on God, we're tapping into a direct line of communication with the one who knows every detail of our struggles. And he promises to answer, not just with small fixes, but with great and mighty things, things beyond our comprehension. A God who restores, verses 6 to 9. In verses 6 through 9, God shifts the focus to restoration. Behold, I will bring it health and cure, and I will cure them and will reveal unto them the abundance of peace and truth. Whether you're facing physical illness, emotional wounds, or spiritual exhaustion, this verse is a lifeline. God promises not just healing, but an abundance of peace and truth. Notice the word abundance. God doesn't do the bare minimum. He's in the business of overflow blessings. What's more, God's restoration isn't just personal, it's communal. He speaks of bringing back Judah and Israel, rebuilding what was lost, and making his people a testimony of his goodness to the nations. This shows us that when God restores, it's for his glory and our good. God's covenant, unbreakable promises. One of the most reassuring parts of Jeremiah 33 is God's emphasis on his covenant. In verses 19 to 21, he says that his promises are as constant as the day and night. Just as you can count on the sun rising every morning, you can count on God to keep his word. This means that no matter how chaotic life gets, his promises to you are unshakable. He will never abandon his plans for you. Practical takeaways for today. Prayer is your weapon. Jeremiah 33. Verse 3 is your call to action. Don't underestimate the power of prayer. Set aside time daily to call unto him with boldness and expectancy. Believe in the God of restoration. If you're feeling broken, meditate on verses 6 to 9. Speak them over your situation and declare God's promise of healing and peace. Trust His timing. Restoration doesn't always come immediately, but God's covenant is eternal. Hold on to His faithfulness, even when you can't see the outcome. Call to action. If this message resonates with you, I challenge you to take a step of faith today. Pray Jeremiah 33, verse 3 over your life. And if you've seen God answer your prayers in a miraculous way, share your story in the comments. Let's encourage one another to trust in the God who still does great and mighty things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs hope. Together, let's spread the truth of God's unchanging promises. Conclusion: Jeremiah 33 is a beautiful reminder that no situation is too far gone for God's restoration. He is faithful to His word, and He's inviting you to call on Him today. Will you take Him up on that invitation?